When I first came to Unitarian Universalism in the late 90s, I was pleasantly surprised to find a denomination where lesbian and gay people were welcome as both members and clergy, not just in liberal Sonoma County, but all across the country. I soon learned that there was a program for UU churches to become welcoming congregations that affirm and include people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer in every aspect of congregational life. This was radical training when it began in 1987. Think of it. Becoming a welcoming congregation means agreeing to honor peoples of all sexualities and gender expressions as whole people, worthy of dignity, respect, trust, and love. It means changing rituals and language to be inclusive rather than exclusive. It means radical hospitality, being open to new ways of doing things, new ways of thinking, new possibilities that make our congregations richer. It means advocating for the rights and needs of LGBTQ plus people. It is a blessing to be part of a religion that advocates for radical inclusiveness, that pushes each of us beyond our limited, acculturated views to see the worth and dignity in all persons. And to make this, hopefully, a daily practice. Still, the process of widening the circle to welcome all people can be very uncomfortable. And it is easy to other people who don't fit a norm, whatever that norm is in our heads, of the range of genders and sexualities we're familiar with. That's often the case with transgender and non-binary people, in particular in UU spaces. As UU educator C.B. Beale puts it, when we UUs speak of inclusion, but we only mean that people, oops, let me get this right. There we go. But we only mean that people are welcome among us when their identities do not cause us confusion or discomfort. We are not speaking of inclusion. It's easy to not think about transgender and genderqueer people if we don't know any. And a recent poll suggested that 70% of the respondents didn't know any transgender people or didn't think they know any transgender people. It's critical to remember, I think, that for self-protection, many trans and non-binary people need to disguise their gender in certain settings, and maybe in all the settings of their lives. If this community wants to say, yes, it is safe to bring your whole self here, then we must act accordingly. Now, about 10 years ago, my son told my husband and me that he is transgender, and he gave me permission to share that with you. At that moment, I learned that I wasn't as radically inclusive as I thought I was. I knew the right response was to love him and to trust his self-awareness, and especially so because the suicide rate among transgender people, and transgender youth in particular, is so high. And the best mitigating factor is a family member who loves them and supports them. So David and I knew that that was the case. Yet that love and trust were wrapped up in confusion and discomfort. I felt guilty about unwittingly encouraging him to suppress what he knew to be true about himself. And I was afraid of losing the person I knew. But then I started reading the stories of trans people, great resources. It's so important to have resources, and the people who loved them. Those stories helped me to understand the mismatch my son felt between his outsides and who he knew himself to be. The stories helped me to be more loving, trusting, and supportive as a parent and an ally who wanted the best for my son. And I was able to see that he, like Jackie in our story, had been telling us all along who he was and who he is. Although I see the evidence of society becoming more accepting with every year and every generation, the growing list of murders and suicides and just violence and brutality among transgender people or against them demonstrates that this world is still incredibly dangerous for people who are not gender conforming and for people who simply want to exist, who yearn to live as authentically as possible. I remain at times afraid for my son and for all the transgender and non-binary people living in a world where they are targeted for being other, where their basic human rights to bodily autonomy, to appropriate medical care, and to their own names are denied. As a UU, I believe strongly that people should have the right to make their own decisions about their bodies and their futures, and that includes reproductive freedom and gender-affirming medical care. Unfortunately, during this past election, reproductive freedom was affirmed in places where it was on the ballot. Whew. But laws against non-traditional gender expression and care continue, right? So even those of us who are justice-seeking, kind-hearted people can do harm to transgender people. It's always good to be curious about people, right? But it's never okay to ask intimate questions. No one owes us details about their lives. It's never okay to ask for somebody's dead name, the name that perhaps they were given at birth that doesn't match their identity. It's never okay to ask anybody about their gender transition process, whether it's surgery or hormones or anything. That is really off limits. And please, please use the correct pronouns. If someone's pronouns are hard to remember, find a way to practice. I do. I do. I practice a lot with people who I'm newly introduced to in my head. Using the right pronouns is essential. It's an essential affirmation of who the person is. I think about Jack in the story this morning and how much he needs to be recognized for who he is. More importantly, there are situations where misgendering someone by using the wrong pronouns can be certainly uncomfortable, but more importantly, unsafe. Our first UU principle is to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of all persons. UU Florence Caplow reminds us that these are not just words to be spoken. Instead, they call us out of our comfort into an ever-deepening commitment, a commitment we make to the rights of all those whose inherent worth and dignity are denied, diminished, or destroyed by systems of oppression. And they call us into the practice of looking into our own hearts with courage and honesty. Let us dig deep to change our ingrained notions of normal gender options. Let us commit to the revolutionary act of trusting each person's self-knowledge, accepting each person's truth. Let us speak up and show up on behalf of our LGBTQ plus siblings. And let us embrace each person's whole self, made in the image of an infinitely complex love that crosses and even destroys boundaries in all our beautiful, holy, sacred humanity. Amen.